Okay.
So we're here on Wednesday, the 20th of April 2010, with Mr. Dylan Lord on behalf at the ZOA headquarters, and we're here with the idea of interviewing Mr. Lord on certain aspects of the IDP crisis in Sri Lanka and their role in it. So, Mr. Lord, before we get into this questionnaire, we were just wondering what exactly is the role that ZOA plays in this whole issue?
ZOA is basically also known as ZOA Refugee Care, where we basically administer care to these IDPs. There are IDPs that may arise out of the war that recently finished in 2009, or could be also IDPs that have come out of the tsunami and have lost all they have because of the tsunami. So it's basically that. And we provide two types of aid, that is hardware and software. So hardware is basically tangible goods like food or clothing. Software is more maybe like sometimes we do psychosocial care. Sometimes sometimes IDPs are not too knowledgeable on the topic of how to live hygienically. So sometimes we have awareness programs and things like that. That's basically what we do.
Right, Mr. Lord, moving into the whole idea of tracing and locating internally displaced persons, we realize that one of the main issues with regards to locating IDPs today is that there is no effective database to identify individually who these IDPs are. So, is there exactly a database or any complete list of internally displaced persons available to any relatives, friends, or other persons who are interested in helping the IDPs?
Well, most of the IDPs, I would say, have arisen out of the war. And the thing about the war is that it does not allow for a proper documentation of IDPs, and it's not very practical to have that sort of database. But there is some sort of database of IDPs and missing people, but it's not exactly 100%.
So you said that it's not practical, so what exactly are the difficulties in creating such database?
Difficulties is that one thing is there hasn't been...
Sorry, rephrase the question?
Yeah, no, so we will continue.
So yeah, there is some sort of database that is maintained by the government and the UNHCR of the IDPs, but it's not...
So they take an active role in trying to help out in case a relative comes in search of...
Yeah, and also that information is not disseminated to the public. It is only limited, it is only given to the people like the relatives who come to look for their families, because it's sensitive information in a sense, because in a way it reveals actually how many people are missing and stuff like that. So it's not openly provided to everyone.
Understood. You said your organization provides both hardware and software in the sense of basic requirements, and do you all also provide health and sanitation facilities?
Yes, we classify our hardware into four types. That is food security, that is the basic food needs and meals, rations, stuff like that. Then we also have NFRs, that stands for non-food related items. That is the basic utensils that they might need and use, stuff like buckets to take a bath or something like that.
Understood.
There is also another thing called WASH, that is water, sanitation and hygiene. So that basically involves, it's twofold, both software and hardware. That is the hardware part, providing things like common latrines and maybe building wells. But software part will be about more, having training sessions and maybe raising awareness about how to live a life, a clean life, and how to, because some people don't even know how to use a toilet. So we have to have programs to, teach them how to, just to train them how to use it.
We know that there's a fair number of IDPs still out there, so we were wondering whether they have access, do they have proper access to all of these requirements such as food, clothing and shelter?
Yeah, basically at the camps where you find all the IDPs, that is the NGOs and the government and the NGOs, they don't try to go beyond providing the basics, as in only the essentials are provided, because we don't want to create this sort of dependency, the trap of dependency where the IDPs become too comfortable at the camps, and sometimes there are even some cases where the IDPs don't want to return home because they're so comfortable with what.
I understand.
Yeah.
Are IDPs provided at least 3 basic meals a day?
It's like this. They were provided meals, but there were lapses in between. In general, they were provided that 3 meals a day, but there was some days where there was an influx of 400,000 IDPs all at once in one day at a camp, and with all that all of that going on, it's very difficult to provide constant food supply.
Understood. So does that apply to appropriate clothing as well?
Clothing was something that is not really designated to be provided on a daily basis. So I think that stuff like clothing was something that they had. But things like food that had to be provided on a daily basis, there were lapses in between with sudden influxes of IDPs, like I said.
In terms of shelter, what kind of accommodation are IDPs housed in?
IDPs at the peak, when in Manik Farm the peak was about 200, about 285,000 IDPs, right? And at that time, it's not practical to have anything more than a tent. So we just so that they have the basic shelter from the rain and things like that, they were housed in tents. But as the numbers dwindled and as IDPs was returning to their homes, it was easier to maybe upgrade their shelter to something like these curtain shelters or shelters just made out of tin and things like that.
So they are housed in semi-permanent structures. So currently, you said at that time there were hundreds of thousands of IDPs.
Yeah.
Now, what exactly are the numbers in roughly?
Right now it's somewhere between about 15 to 20,000. Let's say maybe 17,000 in between. And since it's that comparatively low number, we are able to give them semi-permanent. But when it was at its peak, it was just not practical.
Do IDPs have access to healthcare services?
Yes, they do have access to healthcare services.
So that is qualified medical staff actually visit these camps, or?
Government provides qualities, doctors, medical staff. Other NGOs also, like the ICRC also provides. So yeah, there is medical.
In cases of serious illness, what facilities exist to transfer patients to hospitals with adequate facilities?
There are the ICRC, as far as I know, is the only one that provides that sort of, if there is a serious illness where the medical facilities that exist in the camp are not sufficient to treat them. The ICRC, they do have some sort of ambulance service. That is as far as it goes. I don't know too much about that.
So what, in your opinion, are there any improvements that can be made in the field of healthcare?